first saw it, glittering in the morning haze, two silver streaks slicing through the sky, moving faster than anything they had ever witnessed. To the Japanese pilots of 1942, it looked like some kind of experimental monster. Twin engines, twin booms, and a cockpit that seemed to float like a glass bubble in the center. They didn't know it yet, but the Americans had brought a new predator to the Pacific, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. At the start of the war, Japan ruled the skies. The Zero fighter was light, agile, and deadly. In the early months of combat, it humbled the Allies across the Pacific. American pilots in clumsy, underpowered planes were outturned, outclimbed, and outfought. The Zero seemed untouchable, but the tide was about to change, not through luck, but through engineering brilliance. Lockheed's engineers had designed the P-38 before America even entered the war. It wasn't just a plane, it was a machine built around raw physics, twin Allison engines, counter-rotating propellers, and a design that could survive battle damage and still fight back. Where the Zero danced like a feather, the Lightning roared like a storm. In the Pacific, the first Lightning squadrons arrived with skepticism. Some pilots doubted the heavy twin-engine design could compete with the nimble Japanese fighters. But on that first mission over the Solomons, doubts vanished. The moment the P-38S dove from 25,000 feet, Japanese pilots realized something horrifying. They couldn't outclimb it, couldn't outrun it. And in a dive, the Lightning became a blur of unstoppable force. Captain Thomas Mac McGuire, one of the young American aces who would later become a legend, remembered the first time he engaged the enemy in his P-238. The radio was alive with calls. Bandits. 11 o'clock. And the sky filled with rising dots. The Zeros tried to gain altitude, expecting the Americans to stall as usual, but the twin engines of the Lightning howled, lifting the heavy machine higher, faster, steadier. McGuire grinned through his oxygen mask. "They can't climb with us," he said, pulling into position. The battle that followed was chaos. The P-38's 20mm cannon and 4.50 caliber machine guns, all clustered in the nose, fired straight ahead with deadly accuracy. No need to adjust for wing convergence. Every bullet followed the same line of death. One Zero burst into flames. Another spiraled down smoking. The rest dove. Japanese pilots were trained to rely on maneuverability. Sharp turns, tight rolls, quick flips. The Lightning, however, was designed for energy fighting. It didn't dance. It struck. While the Zero turned inside its own shadow, the P-38 simply climbed above and came down like a hammer. Pilots called it boom and zoom. The Japanese called it something else, the two-tailed devil. By mid-1943, the name had spread across Japanese airfields. Pilots whispered about the twin-engine monster that appeared out of the sun, destroyed half a squadron, and vanished before they could react. Some thought it was two planes flying so close they looked like one. Others swore its engines screamed like a banshee as it dove from the heavens. But the truth was simpler. America finally had a plane that could dominate the Pacific sky. For the Americans, the P-38 became more than a fighter. It was their long-range spear. While other planes needed island bases to refuel, the Lightning could fly more than 1,500 miles, escorting bombers deep into enemy territory. Its pilots learned to fight across vast stretches of ocean, sometimes landing with barely a gallon of fuel left. In August 1943, a mission known as Operation Vengeance changed history. Intelligence revealed that Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, would be flying from Rabaul to Bougainville. 16 P-38s were selected for a daring interception, flying 400 miles at wake level to avoid detection. The timing had to be perfect. The pilots flew silently, hour after hour, until radar confirmed Yamamoto's formation ahead. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber broke formation, climbing fast. Above them, two Mitsubishi Betty bombers, escorted by Zeros, glittered in the sunlight. Barber locked onto the lead bomber. His guns erupted. Tracers tore through the sky, shredding the fuselage. Flames exploded from the right engine. The bomber spiraled down, crashing into the jungle below. The Japanese commander who had orchestrated the attack on Pearl Harbor was dead. The message was clear. Nowhere in the Pacific was safe from the lightning. For Japanese pilots, the psychological shock was immense. The Zero had been the pride of their empire, unmatched for years. But now, their opponents could dive steeper, climb higher, and strike harder. Every encounter with the P-38 left them more uncertain. They tried to adapt, diving early, ambushing from clouds, using hit-and-run tactics, but the lightning's speed erased all advantage. By 1944, American aces like Richard Bong, Charles McDonald, and Thomas Maguire had turned the P-38 into a legend. Bong, a soft-spoken Wisconsin farm boy, would score 40 aerial victories, the highest of any American pilot in the war. His secret wasn't recklessness, it was discipline. He understood the lightning like his own heartbeat. Bong once said, "If you respect her, she'll keep you alive." That respect meant knowing when to fight and when to climb. The lightning could go where no single-engine plane dared. Japanese pilots often attempted steep climbs to escape, but the lightning simply followed, twin engines roaring, altitude, climbing like a predator's patience. On the ground, the Allies began to appreciate the lightning's versatility. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a scout, a bomber, a camera platform. Reconnaissance versions of the P-38 photographed every major Japanese base, from New Guinea to the Philippines. Its twin engines gave it safety over water. If one failed, it could still limp home. To the men who flew it, that meant hope. By late 1944, Japanese pilots were being trained faster, their experience thinning. They faced a generation of American pilots who had learned every weakness of the Zero. The lightning had evolved into a symbol of inevitability. Sleek, unstoppable, merciless in the dive. Veterans remembered one encounter near the Philippines, where an entire flight of Zeros attempted to ambush a squadron of lightnings. The Japanese came screaming down from above, hoping to trap the Americans at low altitude. But the P-38s, instead of turning to flee, climbed straight up, something no one expected. The Japanese watched in disbelief as the twin-engine fighters accelerated past them in vertical ascent. The Zeros stalled, flipped, and fell. The lightnings came down like avenging angels. After the battle, an intercepted Japanese radio message said simply, "We can neither catch them nor escape them." Even in Europe, where the Luftwaffe dominated the air, the P-38 proved itself. It escorted bombers over Germany, fought Messerschmitts over Italy, and chased enemy aircraft across the Alps. But it was in the Pacific where the lightning's legend burned brightest. In the cockpit, the noise was thunderous. Two engines screaming, air rushing, instruments trembling. The pilot's hands danced across the controls, adjusting mixture, prop pitch, throttle. He could feel the plane's pulse, alive, responsive, eager. Every time he pulled the trigger, the guns spat light and sound like a single heartbeat of fury. The lightning wasn't perfect. It had quirks, compressibility in high dives that could lock controls, engines that demanded respect, and a complex maintenance routine that kept ground crews sweating under the sun. But its pilots loved it fiercely. They called it the fork-tailed angel. Japanese ace Saburo Sakai, one of the most respected pilots of the Imperial Navy, once faced a formation of P-38s over New Guinea. Even he admitted later that the lightning changed the air war. It could outclimb, outdive, and outgun us, he said. We feared it more than any other American fighter. By 1945, as the Allies pushed closer to Japan, the lightning continued to lead the charge, strafing airfields, escorting bombers, cutting supply lines. When the war finally ended, thousands of P-38s stood lined along island runways, silent now, but unbroken. Those who flew them never forgot the feeling, that mix of power and precision, the sound of twin engines echoing through clouds, the sight of sunlight flashing across silver wings. It wasn't just a machine, it was a statement that technology and courage, together, could rewrite the balance of war. 4. The Japanese pilots, who once ruled the Pacific, the lightning became an unforgettable symbol of that turning tide. They entered the war, believing no enemy could catch them. But when the P-38 came screaming from the sky, they realized the truth. Speed, altitude, and firepower had finally outmatched grace. The era of the Zero had ended. The reign of the lightning had begun. And somewhere above the endless blue Pacific, the echo of those twin engines still lingers, a reminder that when innovation meets courage, even the mightiest can be stunned into silence.